The book we will be discussing in this series is one of the greatest in the field of human relations, and it is among the best-selling books of its kind in history. Before reading this book, your relationships likely followed a certain pattern, but afterward, you will notice a profound change in how you interact with others. The first part of How to Win Friends and Influence People by the renowned author Dale Carnegie, known for his engaging and profound style, will turn you into a new person. Trust me, my friend, this book was a turning point in my life, and I believe it will be the same for you. So, grab your coffee or favorite drink, and let's enjoy this journey. Welcome to Growth Galore, where we provide in-depth summaries of books in English, with the text displayed on screen in both English and German. You can activate subtitles in other languages if you prefer, and if you'd like to hear the video in another language, feel free to request it from the channel. If you like our concept, we'd be happy to have you subscribe and support us. In 1912, over 100 years ago, Dale Carnegie began offering training courses on the art of handling human relationships. These courses were held for people from all walks of life, teaching them how to better interact with their families, friends, colleagues, and even strangers they met in passing. What set these courses apart was that Carnegie didn't just explain principles. He asked participants to share their personal experiences with applying these principles, then return the next day to recount how they had applied them in their lives. For example, if the principle was "be a good listener," participants would go home and practice it with their families or friends, and return the next day to share the responses they received, such as, "My wife was surprised," or "My son was puzzled by my behavior." This made the course dynamic and engaging. We will explain the book based on these principles and encourage you to apply them in your daily life. We'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. Now, let's begin. 1. On May 7, 1931, the manhunt for serial killer Two-Gun Crowley reached its climax. The police surrounded the apartment of his lover, where he was hiding. What began as a quiet evening in New York turned into a fierce shootout between Crowley and the police. As he fired, Crowley wrote a note that said, "Beneath my coat lies a weary heart, but a kind one that would harm no one." This message was an attempt to justify his actions, even though just an hour earlier he had cold-bloodedly murdered a policeman who had asked to see his driver's license. 2. Similarly, Al Capone, the most notorious gangster in U.S. history, spent years engaging in criminal activity but considered himself a public benefactor. He once said, "I have spent the best years of my life giving people the best fun and helping them have a good time. What was my reward? Abuse and a persecution." Dale Carnegie mentioned these individuals to illustrate a key point. Even people who commit heinous acts rarely blame themselves. Instead, they blame others or the circumstances that led them to such actions. So how about ordinary people like us? The moment we are blamed, we immediately shift the blame to others or external circumstances. If you want someone to admit their mistakes, never accuse them, blame them, or, above all, criticize them. This is the first principle in managing human relations. The moment you direct blame or criticism toward someone, you put them on the defensive, and they will immediately start looking for any excuse to shift the blame. Furthermore, this behavior wounds their pride, which is of immense importance to them. If the words you are about to say won't bring you any positive result or benefit, it's better not to say them at all. So, the first rule in the art of human relations is don't criticize, don't blame, and don't doubt. This principle must become deeply ingrained in your mind because criticism, blame, and suspicion are some of the greatest destroyers of relationships. You might argue that some situations demand criticism and that life isn't always rosy. I completely agree with you. That's why I'm going to teach you the best way to criticize, which is known as constructive criticism. Many of us have heard of this term, but few have seen or experienced it in real life. I'd like to tell you that constructive criticism is real and effective, and I'll explain how to apply it correctly. Criticism, blame, and suspicion are among the most common reasons for the breakdown of relationships. However, there are times when criticism is necessary. But when we criticize, we must learn to do so in a way that helps the other person and doesn't harm them. Criticism that strengthens the relationship rather than tearing it down. This is what we call constructive criticism, and it's what we will discuss now. To practice constructive criticism, follow these 3 simple steps. First, always start with honest and sincere praise. Yes, criticism begins with praise, but not exaggerated or deceitful praise. It must be genuine and come from the heart. Some people use praise as a lead-in to criticism, but that is not true praise. Genuine praise is when you commend someone for something truly worthy of appreciation, without having a critical comment already prepared in your mind. If you're preparing a critical statement while praising, then you're not really praising but setting the stage for criticism. If the person has made a significant mistake and there is no room for praise, then you should apply another principle Dale Carnegie mentioned: appeal to their nobler motives. Address the person based on their true and inherent values. Carnegie said that everyone, no matter who they are, has deep-seated noble principles, even criminals and murderers. When you appeal to those noble values, you awaken them and encourage the person to return to those ideals. This is a very effective method and can be used in place of praise before you offer any criticism. After you start with sincere praise or appeal to noble motives, the second step is to shift the criticism from a blame for the past to a suggestion for the future. Instead of saying, "Why did you do this?" or "Why did you act this way?" say, "Please, don't do this in the future." In this way, you frame your criticism in a way that makes the person think about their future actions rather than defending their past mistakes. The third step is never to connect a compliment and criticism with words like "but," "however," or "if." These words negate everything you said before them. When you say, "You're good at this, but," the person stops listening to the praise and focuses only on the criticism. If you remove these words from your sentences, you'll find that your criticism will be more warmly received and far more impactful. Lastly, there is a method even better than constructive criticism, and that is to find the root cause of the person's mistake and address that cause directly. There's a famous saying, "Actions speak louder than words." Instead of speaking at length, look for an action you can take to correct the issue or even avoid the need for criticism altogether. Act, don't talk. However, if you find yourself in a situation where you must, at worst, criticize, follow this method. Start with sincere praise or appeal to noble motives. Shift from blame for the past to advice for the future, and avoid using words like "but" or similar phrases. And with that, we've covered lessons 1 and 2. I hope you enjoyed and benefited from these insights. If you like the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated. Thank you for your valuable time, which is truly priceless. Join us in the next video as we continue to explore this book in an enjoyable and insightful way. Thank you for listening attentively, and thank you for your invaluable time.